All right, next up in the Spec Corvette project, I'm going to continue with the exhaust system. In the last video, I replaced the catalytic converters with a couple of MagnaFlow resonators. Here I'm gonna continue now with installing a catback exhaust system. I was kind of fortunate a couple of years ago when I was running the Wilwood Corvette Challenge series through Speed Ventures. It's a time trial series, and somehow managed to win that series over the course of the season. One of the prizes was this Flowtech catback system from Holley, since Holley was a sponsor. So anyway, on the other car, I run a Billy Boat catback system. It's very similar, just has a couple or maybe a smaller muffler on the back end. It's just a resonator. This one's a little bit of a bigger can, but still a straight through concept, so should function very similarly. Anyway, I like to run something like this because it just quiets the car down a little bit more. I'm super curious to see how it's going to do here because the stock H pipes, just the way that they're set up, without the catalytic converters, they sound a little bit tractor-like. So anyway, hoping that this will sound a little bit better, but also hoping that it will quiet down the exhaust some. Because every now and then you get to a track like, say, Arizona Motorsports Park or Laguna Seca or something like that, where they're pretty persnickety about sound. So kind of nice to have something to quiet down just a hair. So anyway, I'm going to get to work installing this. Should be pretty straightforward, but I'll check in as we go. All right, catback is on. Man, it looks pretty, way too pretty for a race car, to be honest. It went in pretty easy. The kit itself did not come with instructions, but it's pretty obvious what goes where. It can only go one way, honestly, so there's just pretty much no way you're going to install it wrong. Everything went in fast, but the hardest part actually is just getting the tips to line up properly with each other, and that just requires a little bit of shifting. You'll see there are, I think, let's see, 1, 2, 3 different band clamps on each side, so 6 total, that require a little bit of shimmying to get those things to be even. Of course, this car is not even. You can see from the black bumper that I'm putting this on the black car rather than the silver car, and the reason for that is that I stole the exhaust from the black car to put on the silver car so that I could actually get it on the track before finishing up all this exhaust work. So this thing has seen better days. It's been backed into a tire wall, stuff like that, so the bumper and stuff like that are not exactly straight. So that just required a little bit of extra work, but all in all, went in pretty easy. So with that, let's see how it sounds. Hopefully it sounds a lot better than just the straight H pipe dumping before the axles. What a difference. The car sounds good again, and I'm super stoked about that. Really, really happy with this exhaust system from Holley. I will post in the description a link to the setup if you're interested. Anyway, stoked that it sounds good. Not that it has to on a race car, but you know, you got to kind of like what you're driving, right? It's part of the fun. So anyway, kind of the pros and cons of this. Like I said before, a lot of folks like to dump at the back here at the end of the H pipe. Definitely nothing wrong with that. The benefits of doing something like that are that the car is just, you know, it's lighter. You don't have to worry about the exhaust. Potentially there's a little bit of less back pressure, but I don't think it really makes too big of a difference in the amount of output or anything like that. But it is also kind of a less complex setup. Certainly the back end, if you're racing competitively wheel to wheel, there's a decent chance somebody at some point is going to try to make love to your rear bumper. Usually it's not that big of a deal, but when that happens, these guys can get kind of pressed in, which usually means there's going to be some type of a bend in here or whatever. So there's a chance that if you're out on a race weekend and you get a nice hard knock or something like that, that you might have to do some exhaust repairs. So probably a good idea to hold on to some turndowns to put it back here just in case. assuming you want to run a setup like this. Part of the reason I do it is, we've got our gas tanks are right here, and we've got the fuel filter and stuff hiding up here, and then I've got, you know, like lines and things like that for trans and diff coolers, and so I'm just not super comfortable having everything come down here. And if you've ever been behind one of these cars when you're running straight pipes, you can see flames and things like that occasionally. So I just don't like the idea of having flames in this general area. The other thing is that the engine, you've probably heard before, is basically like an air pump. So it's pushing a lot of air, and it's pushing the air right in a spot where, generally speaking, you don't want it. Really, you're trying to maintain as much vacuum back here as you can. With the rear spoiler, it does produce enough downforce that you probably got a little bit more grip in the rear than you actually want. So if you want to dump your exhaust here, it's probably not going to be the end of the world. But theoretically, you're going to be better off just spitting the exhaust out the back into a vacuum. So those are some of the reasons that I do it. And then, of course, not to mention, it just sounds a hell of a lot better. So anyway, to each their own. There's no right answer, but at least this is one of the options for you if you want to consider it.